Okay, so welcome to Holistic Connections, Conversations with Holistic Practitioners. Today we have Cindy, and she is a sleep specialist. And I will let you introduce yourself, Cindy, and tell us a little bit about what you do in the holistic healing world.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me, by the way.
Thank you.
I am a holistic sleep consultant
Okay, yep.
and I work with people who are pregnant, actually. So I work in pregnancy
Mm,
and then I work with children from birth to age 7. And as a holistic practitioner, I look at the whole picture of sleep. So I don't look at
yeah,
just one or two factors. I look at how probably about 20 things interplay with each other. And
yeah,
then when I work with families, I start with the real most basic principles and then build on that so that the people that I work with feel like they're learning in the process and they're becoming empowered to be able to
yeah.
help their children with their sleep challenges. Because even if you hire a sleep consultant once, your kids are going to grow and
Right, right.
stuff is always happening. So,
It's an
um,
ongoing thing as children grow and mature and age and yeah, go through the world and different
yes,
things are going on for them. Yeah. Yeah.
definitely. Even my kids are 9 and 11, and even doing what I do, sometimes they still have things that come up with sleep. So, uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
the families I work with, of course, we're helping their children sleep better, but then we're also like taking the second um little approach too, where we're giving parents, or I'm giving parents a lot of information and just really giving them a very strong foundation and strong toolbox so that when a
Yeah.
challenge does happen, they are really prepared to say, "Oh, I think I know what that's all about and how I can help my child
Yeah.
get back on track."
That's so great. That's really great.
Thanks.
So you empower them to feel like they now have a little more, I don't know if control is the right word, but a little more control over the situation so they don't feel so hopeless and helpless and what am I gonna do? And when
Yeah.
you're sleep deprived, that makes it even that much worse. So,
Yes.
it's not just babies and children, but then if the baby's not sleeping, the parents aren't sleeping, and it
Right.
just can
Exactly.
really, yeah.
Well, and that's part of the holistic approach too, is
Hmm.
exactly what you said. If the child isn't sleeping, the parents aren't sleeping either. So
Yeah.
sometimes the parents have to make, small changes in their own habits too, because
Mm.
maybe the family is a family that like everybody watches TV until right before they go to bed. So that
Oh,
would be
yeah.
something that we would change for the whole family, not just
Right.
for the child. So we're always looking at, or I'm always looking at all those different factors and
Yeah.
how busy are the parents? How much rest time do they have for themselves? How much support do they have in their own
Mm.
support network? How can they build just more for themselves where they can feel like they're not kind of drowning
Right. Because
into
that's how it feels for
parenthood?
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
my kids are grown, but yeah, we were talking a little bit before I started recording, and boy, I could have used something like this. And I think a lot of parents could have. I don't know when, this first started in the world, when there were first sleep consultants and even sleep therapists and specialists and all of that. I wonder when that started. There were a ton of books, and a lot of them were conflicting information, and a lot of them were basically just opinions by doctors who maybe never even really. Back in those days, a lot of times the father didn't really have much to do
Right.
other than providing the income for the family, but
And a lot of the people writing those books were some of
right,
those people who may not
right.
have been as hands-on as
Yeah,
other people in the family. And then,
right.
yeah, it can be confusing. And some of the people who wrote sleep books aren't doctors or specialists, or
It's just their opinion.
it's just their opinion, right?
Right.
And um, I think for parents, it is very confusing and very
Hmm.
overwhelming, and you're trying to do something that feels like it's going to be helpful to your child and not,
Yeah.
stressful. And
Hmm.
um, I think that some of the books do a disservice because they do
Yeah.
suggest that parents do things that they don't feel comfortable doing. And not all the books are like that. Some books are
Right.
really amazing. And
Right.
but then when you're a parent and you're tired, you don't want to be going through like 100 different books to try
Yeah.
find the thing that's going to work the best for you. So when I do work with a family, I have maybe 8 different approaches that I
Oh,
pull
nice.
parts from. Yeah, that I really like because not every approach is
Yeah.
100% perfect. Every approach has things that are really great, things that maybe don't work so well. Different approaches do well for different children. Like
Yeah.
I always am looking at the child's temperament and what we
Hmm.
think based on what the parents say the child
Right.
is going to do the best with. So I don't want to ever put a family in a position where I suggest something for them to do that's going to wreak havoc on everybody. Like
Yeah.
that's not helpful, and sleep really is about being able to feel safe because you have to
Right.
be really vulnerable. If you think about you're like laying down, it's dark,
Yeah.
you're closing your eyes, where does the world go when
Yeah.
when you go to sleep? And if you think about, toddlers and children who are really in a period of magical thinking, they really are like, I don't know what happens to us when we go to sleep. I don't really
Oh,
know. So
yeah.
I want to make sure that when we're working with a child, the child's really, their needs are really considered because we want to make sure that that baby feels comfortable. Because if you
Yeah.
don't feel comfortable or safe, you're going to have a hard time going to
Yeah.
sleep, no matter how tired you are.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about different, is it just one program and we go through all the steps and then it should work for you, or but you answered that you have several different methods and different things for the parents and for the family and for the children, different things that may work for different families. So I love that. That's great. That's
Yeah.
that's so
Well,
amazing.
thank you. No
Yeah.
family is like any other family. So you
Yeah.
have to have a method or an approach that is really going to look at, well, what's important to this family
Mm-hmm.
is what's important that they're going back to work and they're exhausted and they have to do something like quickly
Yeah.
because you don't want exhausted parents on the
Right.
road for one thing.
Right.
That's very dangerous.
Yeah.
Or is it a family that, um, one parent stays home and so they have a lot of
Hmm.
time and they can really commit to a very different type of approach? Is it a
Right.
family who they co-sleep and they want to stay co-sleeping, but they just want to sleep a little bit more? What is
Yeah.
exactly the family's specific situation, and then how to optimize it the best for what they want. Like it's not about my goal.
Right. Right.
It's about my goal is to help them reach their goal. So,
Oh, great. Yeah, I love that.
it's not my
Yeah.
agenda that's important. It's supporting them to really figure out what is going to be the best for them, which sometimes can be challenging because parents
Yeah.
sometimes do just want you to tell them what to do,
Right.
but you
Especially when they're
also
sleep
want,
deprived. They're like, give
yes,
me the
especially when they're
answer.
sleeping or not sleeping. Yes. And I can do that. If someone says,
Right.
just tell me what to do, sure, I will tell you exactly what to do. But if
Yeah.
somebody says, like, I really want a hand in creating something that makes sense for my family, then of course
Hmm.
we go that route too. So I
Yeah.
do have like specific things that I will, go through. Like we lay a foundation first, so that's
Nice.
looking at um what your sleep environment is like, what your schedule is like, what your
Yeah.
baby's feeding is like. Because if your baby's hungry, they're not going to sleep. So if it's a real little baby, we'll look
Mm.
at that. And then we will look at, again, like I said, what's going on with the parents. Are the parents really stressed?
Yeah.
I've had a lot of parents that I've worked with who have very different ideas of what sleep should look like. So then how to get
Oh,
the
yeah.
parents on the same page, where maybe one parent, has someone in their ear saying, you need to do this. And then this parent has someone else in their ear saying, no, you need to do that. So then
Right.
the parents are arguing. So how to get the parents uh, communicating in a way
Yeah.
where they can be on the same team because you really have to work
Yeah.
together. Uh, and then that's kind of the first phase. And then the second phase, if parents want to help their kids sleep independently, is to really look at the different methods and what methods make sense and what methods we're going to, I'm going to take
Yeah.
this from this method and that from that method and put this together and make something that makes sense for them.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess that's where working with parents who are expecting, pregnant families, maybe who don't even have any other children, or maybe they do have children, and how is this going to fit in with what we're already doing with our older child? Or how do we navigate this? How do we
Yes.
start changing our, nighttime routine and schedule to make it work for the new baby coming? So yeah,
Yeah.
that I can see that where that would be really helpful to get them on the same page as well. Because like you said, when you have parents, two people that might be getting information or have preconceived ideas from their own childhood or who knows where, friends, family, and then
Yep.
another parent has a whole nother set of friends and family and information from their childhood. So starting before you have that baby is really, I can see where that could be really helpful. So,
Yeah.
yeah, awesome.
And when you're tired, you don't want to be arguing about that.
Right, right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, and it's good to have someone, not necessarily a mediator, but somebody kind of a third person that, isn't part of your friend group or your family to kind of guide you and give you that information. Yeah, and I'm
Yep.
sure that you have different, studies and different things that you can bring in to show them it's not just this has worked for my grandma or whatever, but
Right.
here's the science behind it as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I can see that.
And even just a quick thing about pregnancy is we don't unfortunately talk a lot about pregnancy sleep. It's
Mm-hmm.
just, I know for me when I was pregnant and I told my OB that I was having insomnia, she was just kind of like, well, that's
Mm-hmm.
just part of being pregnant.
Yeah.
But in reality, if you can work with sleep in pregnancy, sleep of the parent,
Yeah.
that improves so many different outcomes. So,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
people who are sleep deprived when they're pregnant have like higher risks of preeclampsia and
Wow, that makes sense though.
C-section. Uh, I can't remember, but I think premature birth is one of them.
Ooh,
There's a ton of indicators. You have a greater perception of pain when you're sleep deprived than
wow,
when you've
yeah.
been well rested. So there are lots of like real medical conditions that come from insomnia and pregnancy. And so one of the things I would work with someone who was pregnant is just a lot of these things. Like, well, let's
Yeah.
look at your schedule. Let's look at your what your diet is like. Are you eating foods that are actually keeping you awake? Or are there
Yeah,
foods we can put in your diet that are going to help you sleep better? Because there are pro-sleep and anti-sleep foods.
sure.
I have all sorts of, vitamin panels that we can suggest you get checked by your doctor. So there's lots
Yeah.
of medical and lifestyle things that we can look at when someone is having insomnia in pregnancy that then will help improve their birth experience
Yeah.
and help with some of those medical things like preeclampsia and lowering your risk for C-section. And then there is some research that shows that if you are having insomnia during pregnancy, that might affect the way your baby's sleep cycles develop. So then your baby might actually
Yeah.
wake up more once they're born. So, how to look at how all of those things work together too. So, it's
Yeah.
really
There's
kind
so
of an
much.
exciting time for research, but it's also like so
Yeah.
frustrating when you go to your doctor and they're like, oh, it's just part of it. Sorry.
It's too bad that the doctor's offices wouldn't, and maybe they do, I don't know, but it would be nice if they would offer, sleep specialists or consultants in their area,
Yes.
just to say if you're having any issues, even like just give a card or a pamphlet or something that these, services are available to new parents, or even, it doesn't even have to be new parents, but just, at the pediatrician's office and at the OBGYN office,
Mm-hmm.
to give out a pamphlet or a card and to really help out patients, their families and all of that. So yeah, that's really that makes so much sense, but it's not something that I thought about before. I was thinking about with people that are pregnant, seeing somebody like you and or hopefully you. So seeing somebody like you, not only to sort of set the groundwork for success later, but also to help them for their own health while they're
Yes.
pregnant and the health of their baby and potentially even a healthy birth.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. That's amazing. I love that. I didn't even think of
Yeah.
that, and it really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and if you think about
yeah.
it too, when you're having insomnia, you're probably just laying awake thinking about, oh
Ugh.
gosh, what's it going to be like when I become a parent? Is
Right.
my baby going to be a challenging sleeper or, all the
Yeah.
things that go through your mind? So helping give parents, uh, some sort of tools for dealing with
Yeah.
some of that anxiety and,
And everything, I mean, you talked about even pain and less chance of C-section and all of that. I know, I've had some sleep troubles in my past, and I know that everything is amplified. When you're not sleeping, if you're at all depressed, if you're having any pain anywhere, everything is just that much worse if you
yes,
have not had a good night's sleep or you haven't been sleeping well for a while. So
yes,
in pregnancy, that just makes a lot of sense. So yeah,
yeah.
I'm so
Mm-hmm.
glad you brought all that up because boy, that's great information there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So how did you first become interested in doing this? Other than
Ah,
it's so needed, so I'm glad that you did, but yeah.
yeah. So that's a good question. So, in a previous life, we'll say, I was a therapist
Okay.
and I lived in a state with a very specific license.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to move. And so when I moved to a different state, that license is not, doesn't
Oh,
exist
okay.
in the state that I moved to.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah. So I had to stop being a therapist, which was very tough. But I also
Oh,
had a new
yeah.
baby. So I was like, well, I don't have the brain power for that right now, anyways.
Yeah.
Um, So I had my first son and he was a preemie and so he just
Mm,
slept all the time and I like never even thought about it because
yeah.
preemies just sleep. And so I was like,
Right.
okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And then my second son was not a preemie
Mm-hmm.
and he is such an alert child. Like from the moment that he was born, they handed him to me and he looked like right up at me and I was like, you are not supposed to do that.
Right, right.
You're not supposed to lift your head, open your eyes, and look right at me.
Oh my
Um,
goodness. Yeah. Yeah. I can
but
relate
that,
with that. My two children, my first one was like 6 pounds, the other one was almost 8 pounds, and the second
wow.
one, she was, like I said, she was almost 8 pounds. She was 9 days late. I'm just going through this really quickly because I don't want to
Yeah,
interrupt you, but but she came out like a month old looking baby, and I was like, oh, I don't have a newborn. I have a month old
right.
baby.
It was like so shocking to just
Yeah.
have him like look up at me like that, but that was like a metaphor for just how he is. So he is like
Oh, I love
so
it.
alert, so curious, and as a result, like never wanted to be asleep. Like he just always
Mm,
wanted to be watching whatever
yeah.
everybody was doing. And so we really, really, really struggled with his sleep. And,
Yeah.
add having like a 2-year-old onto that. And I was exhausted.
Sure.
And when he was about a year, like 13 months old, he was waking up 8 times a night.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Was he 8 times a night? It's like, is he even sleeping at all?
no, like
No.
it was terrible. I was
Oh,
exhausted. My husband was exhausted. Um, and it was
yeah.
really just a nightmare. So I hired a sleep consultant, and the sleep consultant said, oh, you give him a bottle every single time he wakes up. You need to just cut that out cold turkey. And I was like, that doesn't really make sense to me because if he's eating 8 times overnight and I cut that out, that's just going to lead to a really hungry, angry
Right.
baby.
Yeah.
And she said, well, you need him to go to sleep. You need to stop feeding him. So stop feeding him. I stopped feeding him
Oh,
overnight, which led to a very angry, hungry
right,
baby.
right.
Um, and it was a nightmare. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I gave this person my money and I trusted her because she seemed like an expert, and it was a
Hmm.
miserable experience.
Oh, I'm sorry you
And
went through that.
thank you.
Yeah.
Then I hired a different person who basically said some similar stuff and gave me like a different technique. And it was something that I couldn't do. Like maybe I'm
Just
too
didn't
soft-hearted
sit
or
right with you. Yeah.
no, it didn't make sense to me. And then he just started waking up 13 times a night. So I had hired these two people. It went from 8 times to 13 times.
And you
Um,
were feeling worse probably about yourself and about
yes,
your parenting and for your baby.
yes,
Made you feel worse. Yeah.
exactly.
Instead of
And
empowered and yeah.
exactly. I felt very disempowered, very helpless,
Yeah.
very exhausted, very like I'm losing my mind, really, because I
Right.
was so tired at that point. So I started doing some of my own research. And so my son is 9 now. So I feel like sleep
Mm,
consultants, really at that point, there were not many of them.
yeah.
There was a lot of books, but I was too tired to read.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, and and you don't know which one to get because there is a lot and there's just more and more all the time. Yeah.
Yes. And with a 2-year-old, like I was
Yeah.
not
When
ready
do you
for
have time to sit there and read with a
no.
2-year-old and a baby and you're sleep deprived? Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
then I found this method called the holistic science of sleep. So that's what I became
Mm,
certified in. And I started reading the founders um theories and evidence and things like that about sleep. And I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. Like this is
yeah.
why what I tried with my son didn't work, because
Right.
the the two people that I hired like didn't take into consideration his temperament,
Mm-hmm.
didn't really help me lay a foundation, didn't really like explain to me how his sleep cycles and the schedules and things like that
Yeah.
worked. Didn't really look at how all of those things worked together. They were really just, you
Like
know,
this is the method, do this, do what I say, and it's gonna work. And if it doesn't work, you're the problem.
right, exactly. You
You're
did it
doing something
wrong
wrong.
then.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Oh
so,
gosh.
yeah, so her approach just really made a lot of sense to me. And then
Yeah.
I did start reading some other books and things, and I just kind of built my own approach, and I
Yeah.
became certified in her method.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, and I would say my 9-year-old now is like the best sleeper in our family. Like he is
Aw.
the one who will say, "Mom, it's bedtime." Like,
That's
"What
great
are you
though.
doing?
Yeah.
It's time to get me ready for bed," which he still likes to have stories read to him and things like that. So I
Right,
have
the
to,
whole routine. Yeah, we got to
yes,
go
I
through
have,
this routine. Yep.
yep, which I love because it's like
Yeah,
a good time for us to spend together. But that's really how I
sure.
got started, was coming from that place of
Mm-hmm.
feeling like what these experts are saying doesn't make sense for me. And
Yeah,
so didn't make sense for my baby, and really feeling very desperate, honestly, to
sure.
get some sleep, and you know trying to find things that did make sense. And
Right.
so I was a more holistic type therapist whenever I
Mm-hmm.
was practicing therapy. And so it just made sense to have that type of
Yeah.
method for sleep too. Because, like you said when we were talking earlier, that it's really hard to just focus on one aspect and
Right.
really solve a problem, if you want to call it that. Like a problem doesn't
Right. Any
usually,
issue, yeah.
yeah, it's not born
Any
of one thing
challenge, yeah.
usually. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So as you said, and I was just going to bring this up, so I'm glad that you did, or you were reading my mind a little bit there about about the it being holistic, and you were talking about that you did a lot of your therapy was more holistic as well. And we were talking before, like you said, that some people have a kind of a different idea of what holistic really means, and it really means just everything is connected, and you cannot work on one issue of your life without it affecting the rest of your life. And if you keep pushing at this one thing, this is the issue, this is the issue, we got to work on this, and you don't do anything else in the rest of your life, you're not going to be successful with that. So everything
Hmm.
is connected, and you have to work on, like you said, talking to, the parents, finding out what's right for them. What are they doing in their life? What are they eating? What is the room set up like, probably? All kinds of things that I'm sure I don't even know about. I'm not even thinking of, but all kinds of things within their whole life and their lifestyle and their surroundings. I mean, our siblings going to be having to sleep in the same room together. Like you
Hmm.
said, there's some parents that want to co-sleep and, or is the crib in the room with the parent? Just all kinds of different situations. And then, like you said, are they watching TV or are they having quiet time and a bath and reading or whatever it is, whatever routine it is. So, yeah, you have to kind of work on everything, the whole
Yep.
thing, and not just, let's just focus on this. Why is this baby not sleeping? And let's just do this and this, and rather than, well, what's your lifestyle like? What are you guys used to doing? And what are you eating? And what are you doing in the hours before bed? And all of that. Yeah, yeah. So it's all connected. And
It
that's what
really is
holistic
all
means.
connected.
Mhm.
And it's so fascinating. Like
It
every
is.
family that I work with, it's like a mystery, because
Yeah.
you're looking at all of the different clues that they're giving you and you're piecing it together and then you're kind of
Yeah.
like reverse engineering a little bit a way of,
Sure.
a plan for them. But sometimes it is something as simple as, especially for older kids, because I do work
Mm-hmm.
with, toddlers and school age kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, maybe you have a child who's a picky eater, which is a
Mm-hmm.
very normal thing. Your taste buds
Mm-hmm.
are developing, you're figuring out what you like and you don't like.
Yeah.
And so maybe dinner time becomes a contentious time of the day.
Mm.
And maybe there is a lot of arguing or a lot of,
Yeah.
you know, eat this or, who knows what's
Right.
going on, but
Disagreements and
disagreements
upheaval
about,
in the evening. Yeah.
yes. Or like my mom likes to tell this story about when I was 3 and she made me sit at the dinner table until I finished my milk, and I sat there for 3 hours and never drank it.
Oh.
Like,
And it went bad.
and it went bad. And she said, I guess you could get up now. But, um,
Here, have
little
some
things like
water.
that, yeah, that we're not thinking about, or even the things that we eat or we feed our kids. Like, what kid doesn't love to eat like a bowl of pasta for dinner? But then you're giving your child like something that's turning into a lot of sugar. It's not going
Right.
to keep them full for very long. And then you're asking them to go to bed and they might actually be hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And, like those sorts of things, like you're just looking at some of those things and it might be something that you just do every day and you have never even
Right.
thought
You didn't
about.
relate it to the sleeping. Yeah.
Right. Or another thing that's very interesting food wise is so many baby products have apple in them,
Mm.
like applesauce. My
Right.
sister gives my nephew those little squeeze packs. A lot of those have
Yeah.
apple as kind of like
Base. Yeah.
a base. Yeah,
Yeah. Because it's cheap.
right.
And they can still say it's all natural and fruit
And
and
it's
whatever, but
tasty,
yeah.
but apples can give you as much energy as a cup of coffee.
Oh my
So
goodness.
then you might be giving your child, my sister, I love my sister. She has 3 little kids. She was having problems with one of her kids, and I said, "What are you giving them for a snack?" A peanut butter apple. I was like,
Mm.
"Oh, you're on the right track. Like
Yeah.
the
She's probably
protein is
thinking
good, but the
right, the
the
protein.
apple is
Yeah.
bad
Yeah.
because the apple will keep you awake. So then,
Mm.
if you're giving your child applesauce as a dessert, or apple as a bedtime snack,
Yeah.
or I've worked with a lot of people who are pregnant who have an apple before they go to bed, and then they
Mm.
have insomnia because they're giving themselves basically like a cup of coffee. So
Yeah. Wow.
sometimes you're just looking at little things like that where it's like, well, how can we incorporate more pro sleep food into your diet and less
Yeah.
things that are going to sabotage your sleep? Like tomato is a big sleep sabotager.
Mm.
Peppers, um, anything that's going to make you gassy, obviously, especially as a
Yeah.
really little kid.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
a lot of those different citrus can be a sleep
Mm.
sabotager. So, um,
So,
looking at some of those
yeah.
different things and
So you almost have to
seeing
be a
what might be.
nutritionist as well. I bet you know a lot more about nutrition than just the average person also, just knowing what things will keep people up and what things will turn into, just complete. sugar high, even though it's something
Yes,
you don't think of in that way, it's not a dessert. So yeah, yeah, that's
right.
good.
Or I work with some families who maybe are vegan or vegetarian, and then
Mm-hmm.
looking at some of the different uh, things that they want to make sure they are getting in their diet that
Right.
helps with sleep. So things like vitamin B and D
Mm-hmm.
and things that might be hard to get from uh, fruits and vegetables and beans
Yeah.
and nuts and things like that. And giving them a list of like things to go to their doctor and get checked to see if their vitamin levels might be low. And it's
Mm.
something you might not think about, but
Yeah.
then you need certain fats and things to help produce
Yeah.
melatonin. So I might advise people to put like a lot of avocados in their diet or something
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Yeah. And then how are they going to get enough protein so they stay full and stuff like that? Just different options that they might not already know about. Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Yep. And then when people start, when their kids start using the bathroom and how that
Mm-hmm.
affects sleep overnight and so
There's
many
so
different
much. There's so much.
yeah, it is big. It's a very big topic. And one of my goals really is to give parents a lot of tools so that as their
Yeah, it
kids get
sounds
older
like
and they
it.
encounter other sleep challenges, they can kind of,
Come back to
figure
what
things
they've
out for
learned.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'll have past clients email me and they'll be like, I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to say about this, but I want to check it anyways. And a lot
Yeah.
of times they're right. Like they really learned something from our time together.
Nice.
And yeah, I've been doing this for 6 years. So I have
Okay.
some families who their kids are like 8, 9, 10 years old now. And they'll
Yeah.
email me and say, so and so just had a couple rough nights.
Mm,
I'm looking back and I'm realizing, oh, we've really been rushing the bedtime routine. Do
yeah.
you think that that might be why they're not sleeping well? And so it's nice to
Yeah.
feel like they're, like I said, just learning
They
things,
have
having a lot
learned
more.
from the previous time with you, yeah, and they've learned what to
Yes,
do for the future as well. But it's nice also that they feel like they can, you must be very open and approachable for them. They feel like they can reach out to you and say, "Hey," even a couple years later, "Hey, it really worked when he was a baby and now he's a toddler and this is happening. And I
yep,
think I know what you're going to say because of our past time together, but just want to get your thoughts on this." So that's so
yes,
nice. That's great
exactly.
that they can
It
reach
is
out to
nice.
you.
It is really nice. There are, like I said, a few families that have had multiple kids and they've come back to me and they've said, like, I know all the basic stuff. I just want to have you on standby, like in case
Right, right.
something goes
Just
awry.
let's
And
reconnect. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's great to have those relationships with the families that I work with.
Yeah. Yeah, very nice.
Hmm.
So are you working with these families in person or through, just virtually? And what are the ways? Is it remote or is it both, anyway? Yeah, so how are you working with your
Yeah,
clients?
yeah, it's mostly both. I
Yeah.
live in Michigan, so I do see. Well, right now I'm hiding in my house because there's like a blizzard outside, but
Oh,
I do see
I used to live in
families and
Michigan and I don't
oh yeah,
I'm in California now and I will never go back. So
yeah. On a day like today, I do not blame you.
yeah.
So in Michigan, I will see families locally.
Mhm.
A lot of times what I'll do is if I'm working with a family, so I have like a full service package where we're like
Mhm.
really, really working together. And then I have some more a la carte stuff for people who
Yeah.
maybe have read like all of the books or people who have worked with me before and just want like little refreshers.
Hmm.
So I offer both of those things. So when I'm working with a family, like really in a full service kind of situation, and with
Yeah.
that, I mean like we're in the trenches together. Um, Sometimes I will go to their house for the very first session because I really
Oh,
like to meet
nice.
people. I love babies. I love
Yeah.
meeting their babies and holding their babies if they let me hold their babies. And I really like to see and like get a feel for what the sleep space is like.
Right,
Um,
right. Yeah, I can
one quick
imagine,
funny.
if a
Oh, go
if
ahead.
a if a baby's room is right off of the living room and the family is watching movies together, after they put the baby to bed or something like that. So,
Yes.
yeah, sorry to interrupt. Go
Oh,
ahead.
no, no, you're fine. There was one family I went to see their house and or to meet them all. They had a humongous dog,
Mm.
and the parents and the child were sleeping on two different floors, and we
Uh,
did all of our work. They were like doing everything they were supposed to, and their baby was still waking up, and she was probably like nine
oh.
months old at this time, and we were just like, what are we missing? Like
Mm.
there's something that we're missing. And then I thought, you have that dog. Watch and see what the dog does. So the dog would go upstairs every morning, poke her nose in the baby's crib, wake the
Mm-hmm.
baby up. The baby would cry. The dog would go downstairs. The parents would go upstairs, get the baby, and then come down and feed the dog breakfast.
Yeah. So the dog was using the baby as the alarm clock for the family.
Yes. And if
Oh, what
I
a
had not
smart
been to their
dog.
house, I probably would have never known that they had this big dog.
Right.
And it was just the
Yeah.
funniest kind of situation where we're like, oh, we've done like all the things. What are we missing? And it was
Yeah.
this dog was they started like turning the monitor on and they would set their alarm for before they knew the baby was going to wake up so they could
Yeah.
watch on the monitor and see what was happening. And lo and behold, here comes the dog in there, waking the baby up. But
Yeah.
that's not every situation, but
Right. But you wouldn't have known that, like you said.
no,
Yeah. It's like,
I wouldn't have
oh, you
known
have a
that.
dog. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. And like really, I really take a lot of time to get to know like what the whole situation is because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there are weird things like that
Right.
or I worked with a family who the neighbor would come home at like midnight and pull up in the driveway and the lights would shine in the baby's bedroom and wake the baby
Ah.
up. So you have all these, you know, interesting
Yeah, there's no
outlying
way
factors
that
that
just
sometimes.
one thing is going to work for every family when you have no idea the family dynamics and the situation and their lifestyle and their home life and what's going on. I mean, even around their home, it sounds like, my
Yep.
goodness, yeah, there's a lot to consider. And I
Yeah.
love too that you didn't say, nothing was working and, oh, well, you're not doing exactly what I said then, probably, which a lot of other kinds of,
Right.
some therapists and some, doctors might say, well, you must not be doing something that I told you to do right,
Right.
rather than that,
Exactly.
you're saying, well, let's figure this out. What else could be
Yeah.
happening? So I love
Yeah.
that. That's
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my in-person stuff. And
Uh-huh.
then I do offer sometimes in-person workshops and things in Michigan
Mm-hmm.
at different birth centers and doctors' offices and
Oh,
stuff like
nice.
that. Yeah, there's a yoga teacher that I do workshops for her students and
Aw,
um
nice.
yeah, it's really fun. And then I do everything virtually too. So I've had clients in England, I've had some clients in India, I've had a lot of clients in Canada. So just if
Yeah,
there's a way to
wow.
communicate, then we can
Yeah.
work together.
Yeah, I wonder, so with my second child, I had a midwife. I had I had a home birth. So and then I actually apprenticed with midwives for a little bit, so a couple
Mm,
different ones. And so I wonder if you were to contact like midwives because they're more holistic, and people are more concerned with, reaching out and being empowered and learning all that they can a lot of times rather than just giving up their whole control to somebody else to fix something for them. They
yeah.
usually those are the types of people that want to be more involved. So I wonder if if you have any connection with any midwives or if that might be something that, is another idea for a way to reach out.
Yeah, oh, I
So,
do actually have a few birthing centers that I
oh, nice.
am in contact with, some midwives.
Yeah.
I have one midwife who is a huge referral source for
Oh,
me.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, good,
So,
good.
yeah,
Yeah, I was
there's,
thinking it might be easier that way to speak with another woman, usually,
yeah.
compared to going to a doctor, which a lot of the doctors are women. I'm not saying they're not, but it's easier to kind of connect with somebody that might be a midwife or a birthing center type of
Hmm.
staff compared to trying to go into a doctor's office
Yes.
and asking them to give your information. So yeah,
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you mentioned the workshops. So are the workshops? usually right in, like in Michigan and they're in person, or do you have any workshops that people can do just like sort of on their own online, or is it all just in person?
I don't have anything that anyone can do on their own. Like
Yeah,
I don't have any
like
like
self-directed
pre-made
type
class.
of, yeah.
Yeah, maybe one day I will do that, but
Yeah. Well, that kind of
today is
takes
not
away
that day.
from the whole holistic thing too, because it takes it's more of like a book, like here's the method, here it is, follow these steps without
Yes.
taking into account what's going on with everything else with the family and the household and the lifestyle and all of that.
Yep,
So yeah,
that's
that
exactly right. I do offer a couple of virtual workshops every year. I have a sleep
oh, okay.
workshop that I offer usually a couple times a year. Very low cost, like very low barrier. Pretty much your only need is some sort of technology
Yeah,
to be able to follow along. But it is one that I lead and I host, and I keep them
nice.
small so that the families have a lot of time to ask questions. And then exactly like you're saying, it can still be personalized
Yeah.
even in a group setting. And a lot of times parents ask questions and other parents are like, oh, I never thought of that, or that's
Yeah.
exactly what I was going to ask. And it's really great to see how people like support
Light
each
up, yeah.
other and the light bulb moments happen.
Right,
And
right.
that's really, really cool. So I do
Yeah.
a few of those every year. And
Nice.
then I also teach a parenting class a couple times a year, which is really how to help build emotional intelligence in your kids, how
Oh,
to help
nice.
parents. Um, I don't really know what the right word for it is, but it is discipline, like how to discipline
Mm-hmm.
your child in like a very respectful, not
Yeah.
scary, palatable way that's very different than how like I was disciplined as a
Yeah.
child. I think people are scared of the word discipline, but
Right.
discipline really is teaching.
Right,
So it's,
right.
when your child does something that you don't like how do you teach them in a healthy way that's actually going to make an
Yeah.
impact and not in a way that's going to make them feel yucky?
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. Make the
Got
child
it.
scared and make you feel bad about
Right.
what you've done, make you feel guilty. Yeah, because you don't
Exactly.
know any other way. A lot of times we don't know other than how we were treated as children or what we saw as children. A lot of times we don't even really know, or I say we, I mean like young parents.
Yeah.
Where do you get that information from? And just like
Right.
with the sleep stuff, you could get it from books, but there's all kinds of different methods and ideas out there on the
Yeah.
way to discipline children. So yeah, so that's
Yeah.
great.
So I do in that workshop, I do a little bit of teaching about just what your child's brain is doing at that
Yeah,
age, and how to really understand why your children do the things they do
yeah,
when they're, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're like, I've told you this a million times. Why are you still doing this?
yeah.
Um,
All the different
and even,
stages and yeah.
yeah, and I work with parents even in a coaching capacity. I have a couple families I'm working with teenagers right now and how
Wow,
to like really build healthy communication with your teenagers so that you have less
nice.
rebellion and resistance and all that kind of stuff. And um, how to have a household where like everybody has a voice and people feel
Yeah,
comfortable expressing their feelings, and how to be present when your child is expressing feelings in a way that doesn't make you feel like, oh my God, like you're crying, I have to make you stop crying, or that
yeah,
kind of thing. So how to really look at emotions and things in a approachable, palatable
yeah,
way. And then I teach in that parenting workshop about like problem solving and conflict resolution and how to do conflict resolution with your kids in a way that everybody feels good afterwards.
yeah.
Um, and I just think that's like so helpful and
Oh
so
yeah. So needed.
empowering again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
when you
it's
empower your kids to be able to do a lot of that kind of stuff, then that takes a lot of pressure off the parents.
yeah,
And then it just creates an atmosphere where your kids feel comfortable coming to you with problems and not like they have to be
right.
scared of what your response is going to be.
Right, and looking for solutions rather than it just being bad. Like
Yes,
rather than this behavior is bad and wrong, it's like this isn't working out and what can we do differently?
yes,
So, yeah.
100%. And it's really like looking at behavior and trying to
Yeah.
suspend like a lot of our judgments of this is good, this is bad, this is rude,
Yeah.
this is nice, this is mean, this is kind, this is blah,
Mm-hmm.
all those judgment words and
Right.
just think like, well, this is behavior and
Yeah.
how can we look at it objectively and say like, this is a behavior that I don't like and I'm not comfortable with. Let's do a different behavior instead
Yeah.
of like, you're a bad kid.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. This isn't working. And what can we do differently? Yeah. I love
Yeah,
that approach. Yeah. Great.
yeah, it's really great. And like one very quick example is I was in Florida with my boys and we were driving our rental car to the airport in Orlando, which is like a terrifying experience.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And we're, trying to get to the airport and all this stuff. And my boys had decided who was going to sit next to the window seat on the way down to Florida. And then my one son decided to change his mind
Oh my goodness.
about this. And so they're in the back arguing. And I'm like, you know, trying to not kill us in the
Yeah.
Orlando traffic. And
Yeah.
so one of the things I teach parents is really how to use active listening very, very effectively. And so I did a quick like, it sounds like you both have your ideas of what to do with the window seat, and you both really think that your idea is right, and you both really want to sit by the window seat, and like just a very quick active listening. And so my older son said, um, I said, I think we need to put this discussion on pause until we get to the airport.
Yeah.
And they paused for a few minutes, and then my older son said, I think I have a solution that's going to work for both of us. And
Nice.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
let's hear it.
Love that
He
sentence.
said,
Yeah.
well, how about if you set a timer, Mom, and I sit next to the window for the first half of the flight, and my brother sits next to it for the second half of the flight. And I said to his brother, what do you think about this? I think that sounds good. I'm like,
Nice.
okay, that is not the solution I would have come up with because in my mind that still seemed unfair, but they were happy with it.
Yeah. So, and that's what mattered because it was
That's
their
what
issue.
mattered. So I said, perfect. I will set a timer, the flight's however long. I'll set this timer. And when we got on the plane, the timer went off, and my older son actually said, I think I'm going to let him sit in the window seat for a few more minutes. We'll
Hmm.
switch. Like,
Nice.
wow,
Yeah.
okay, this is amazing. So, it's a funny story, but it's proof that when you give your kids tools to be able to solve their own problems
Yeah.
or their own conflicts, they can do it without me having to
Just give
micromanage
them the
it.
solution or what you think is best for them to do, helping
Yes,
them to decide for themselves. So,
exactly. Because if
yeah.
it were me, I would have said, well, you sat in the window seat on the way here, so your brother gets to sit in the window seat on the way back. And
Right.
that was and that would have caused so much more conflict.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So amazing. So it's really, again, we come back to that word holistic. It's really is so much more than just sleep.
yes,
So much more than just sleep. And so much more than just sleep for the parents or new babies or pregnant women. Just so much involved in all of this. So where can people reach you? What's the best place to reach out to you?
so I do have a Facebook and an Instagram, but I am terrible
Okay.
about posting stuff on there. Um, it is the Holistic Sleep Center. Uh, it might just be holistic. I can never remember if the is on there or not. But
We
there is
will
a
put the
lot.
link below. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot of good information on
Yes.
both of those. There's the pro sleep, anti-sleep foods is on there, different vitamins, different, very basic fundamental things for parents around sleep.
Nice. Yeah.
Um, and then I do post like my workshops and stuff on there. And then my website is holisticsleepcenter.com.
Okay. Yeah. And like I said, make sure that for the listeners and the viewers, please read the description below. It will have all of her information and all, where you can reach her and just all of her information. All her links will be down there. So is there anything else that you would like to share or make sure that people know before we go?
I don't think so. I think it's just so nice to have a forum to get to talk about these things and
Yeah.
um, give people more options than just what maybe they thought was possible. And
Yeah.
I really just love to teach parents like
Yeah.
all these different things so that they really feel like good about them, what they're doing. Because maybe
Mm-hmm.
we feel good about ourselves as a parent, but then we're like, I don't really know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah,
And when
or
you're,
there'll be a surprise because a lot of times I
yes,
think even if parents are very confident in themselves and confident about their parenting skills and and even if they have a background, for new parents, even if they have a background in some sort of childhood education or childcare or anything, there's going to be something that comes up with your own pregnancy or your own baby that you didn't expect.
yes,
That kind of maybe throws you for a loop. So yeah,
yeah.
it's great to have someone like you for them to reach out
Well,
to.
thank you.
So yeah,
And
so
even sometimes the people that have all the knowledge are the people that can get really stuck too, because it's hard to
sure.
see, it's hard to see inside your own
Right.
situation sometimes. And having someone from the outside go like, oh, you're
Yeah.
doing everything so well, and you could do like these couple of things differently. And then,
Yeah.
when you're really tired and when you're in the thick of it all, and just for me coming from a background as a therapist, like
Yeah.
I did child development. I worked with kids
Mm-hmm.
for a long time. And then when my kids were born, I was like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah. And, my other goal really is like to help parents really trust themselves because a lot
Yeah.
of, there's so much out there and like so many people giving you unsolicited advice and so many
Mm-hmm.
people when you
Oof.
become a parent, it's like open season for people to criticize you. And
Yeah.
it's really terrible. And, it that like really just leads to people really doubting their own instincts. And I think that that's such a disservice to parents. And so if I
Yeah.
can help parents, a lot of times parents really know what to do, but they've
Mm-hmm.
been told by so many other people that they don't.
They've got
That
all
then
this
it's
stuff
like,
coming at them
yes,
and they're probably sleep deprived
yes,
that it makes it
exactly.
that much worse. Yeah.
Right. So it's like you really do know. You need to trust yourself.
Yeah.
Um and then having like a little person to help you cheer you along from the outside is really what
Yeah.
my job is. It's like it's best for your kid. You just maybe not don't know quite how to get there. So I'm going to
Yeah.
help you get
Yeah.
there.
I love that. So, yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
So I have learned today, and so I know that the listeners and viewers have also learned something today. And I want to thank you again for coming on and sharing everything because my goodness, it's so much more than what I expected. So
Well, thank
that's
you so much for having
awesome.
me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess we're going to close out now and stay on, even though the recording will stop. And thank you everybody for watching and listening and clicking on this video today.
Thank you.